you for joining us on Savvy Senior Sources, Talking with Experts. Let's take a moment and hear from our sponsors, GWG Life and Reverse Mortgages SIDAC.
Provide for your long-term care. Convert your life insurance towards payments for long-term care. If you are concerned about future health care, you can convert your life insurance to pay for home care or assisted living. Health problems can be stressful enough without the added burden of financial obligations. If you feel that you no longer need your life insurance policy, you may want to apply the value towards long-term care.
Hi, I'm Beth Paterson, a certified reverse mortgage professional with Reverse Mortgages SIDAC. Mike and Carol decided that they needed a one-level home to fit their changing health needs. They used the reverse mortgage to purchase their new home instead of using conventional financing. This has benefited them greatly. Barbara decided to do a reverse mortgage to pay off her conventional loan that she was making monthly payments on. She had funds left in the line of credit after paying that off. And a year or so later, when she fell and broke her shoulder, she was able to tap those lines of credit to pay for her home care. As she said, she would have been up the creek without a paddle without the reverse mortgage. If you'd like information on how to receive security, independence, dignity, and control in your retirement years, contact us. Hi, welcome to Savvy Senior Sources, Talking with Experts. Savvy Senior Sources guide your way through resources A to V, through the TV shows, as well as the Savvy Senior Sources Guide and our website. Visit SavvySeniorSources.com to get information on how to receive a copy of the guide and to find other resources. I'd like to say a special thank you to our sponsors, GWG Life and Reverse Mortgages SIDAC, for making this show possible. And I'd like to welcome back my guest co-host, Lori LeBay. Thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for having me, Beth. It's always fun to be on the show.
Yeah, we always have good discussions. And today we have Maura Albrecht with Financial Wellness for You as our guest. And we're going to be talking about daily money management. So thank you, Maura, for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah. Let's start off. Tell us a little bit about who you are, and then we'll get into the topic of daily money management.
Sounds great. Thanks, Beth and Lori. Good to be here. My background is actually in the financial planning arena. I spent 15 years with a broker-dealer doing planning and left that about 8 years ago to start Financial Wellness, really focusing on the financial health of families. So much of that depends on how we manage the daily money management of our daily expenses, our income, and then doing some planning looking forward cash flow wise, saying what can we expect down the road and how do we account for it.
So daily money management, talk about that role specifically.
Okay, so
what is it? Because I think it's a term that people aren't even aware of.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of a scary term when you think about somebody coming in and really looking at what we do on a daily basis with our finances.
Because most of us don't really take in account of how much we're spending, getting that cup of coffee or doing this or doing that. Now we're going to have an outsider coming in going,
Right. I had a reverse mortgage client who said to me, well, I don't want, because I was suggesting making up a budget. Well, I don't want somebody else to be telling me what I can spend and can't spend. Well, that's a little different than
actually working through what we term the daily money management. And really what it is it can be a full spectrum of services. A lot of our focus is creating that spending plan. When we talk about budgets, it's also oftentimes it's looking backwards to see what I did. So I really prefer the term spending plan because we're looking forward. We're saying where am I spending? I always use the example of what does it cost me for fixed expenses, the things that we're familiar with every month, and then the variable expenses. And Lori, your comment about the coffee, I always say, what does it cost you to walk out the door every
Yeah.
day? So those are important aspects to understand in that cash flow planning, but the daily money manager really steps in beside the individual, whether it be a young family or an older family, and helps manage. So it can be as little as opening and sorting the mail, helping them understand what insurance bills have come through, what is Medicare or private insurance paying, organizing those documents in a manner that's comfortable for that individual. No judgment on where it's going, but really helping them be able to account for where those dollars are going and provide that report to say, is this what you want to be happening?
So they're really part of the process. It's
Absolutely.
not somebody coming in to scold and pull in. It really is to just kind of be that second pair of eyes and ears. Because it can get overwhelming, and especially, as we age or if we're ill, to just stay on top of all that stuff, or if we're just really busy with jobs and kids and things too.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest benefit of it, is really looking and saying it's not for an elder person, older adult. It's not necessarily for a younger person. It's for everyone. We all get overwhelmed with our daily work schedules, family schedules, and important numbers to be accounting for and keeping track of.
So, and sometimes with the seniors that maybe can't manage their money anymore, rather than having the children come in and do that, the daily money manager can come in and take that role, and then when the adult children are visiting, rather than focusing on where mom is spending the money, and mom maybe feel a little more judged if the kid
is watching over. I call that, I want to be the kid in my family. And so often I think when we watch our parents get older, or a loved one that is losing the ability to manage their finances the way they once did. And again, that can be illness, that can be stress, that can be all different things. And oftentimes, again, the adult kids are the perfect one to watch over it. But all of a sudden, those relationships change. And my dad used to always use the example. He said, the day I'll let my snotty, 17-year-old look at my checkbook, will be over my dead body. So now, having a 17-year-old, I completely get it. But it's really that oversight. And again, it keeps the family intact.
So when the child comes to visit, they can really have a visit and not spend that time, the precious moments that they're having together, focusing on the bills or taking care of it. So you can have a third party. And sometimes that third party can just make it easier to address things, have the conversations, and I'm thinking the parent might not feel as likely to be judged. And
Well, the dynamics aren't there.
Yeah.
Right.
You're the child that's always been in trouble, and now you're going to tell me what to do. And even though they're an attorney now and doing really well, they're still perceived
They're
as
still the 17-year-old kid. It
Yep.
doesn't matter what your profession is. I think I find that's the biggest joy that I have in my work, when you can relieve that stress or strain on a family when we're dealing with finances. I work very closely with family members. If they're holding the power of attorney or really want to be involved, it's really just taking away that daily piece of it for the family. So you don't have to stop on your way home from work to look at that insurance letter or read through what came in the mail. It's all organized, always very transparent. So with the permission of the client, that information can be shared with a family member or the family attorney, whoever it may be.
And so the client really is in control.
All the time. All the time.
Yep.
Yes.
yeah, unless they have dementia, and then it would still be the family would be.
Correct. But there's a lot of, and I work with a number of people, with capacity, if you will, issues. They still identify themselves as the money person. So I always talk about it in terms of sliding beside you. And even if it's just us working together on the daily mail, because that's what you've always done, and having the power of attorney or an adult child oversee that next step of bills getting paid. But as much as possible, I really enjoy involving that individual.
And it still gives them some control,
Yeah.
feeling that they
Yes.
still
Yes.
have some control. Talk about some of the other things. We talked about paying the bills, but bank deposits, tax time, medical bills. Talk about some of those
so we
other
all
things.
know we all get a lot of mail every day. So initially it's really sorting through and saying what are the things that we need to keep, what are the things that are perhaps a scam that make us vulnerable to being taken advantage of, working through the insurance filing. So those explanation of benefits can be so overwhelming.
Oh, yeah,
So-
especially if someone's got a chronic illness, it's just one after another after another. And you hear horror stories of them repeating paying something they don't even have to pay, and then to try to get that money back is a process and a half.
Painful process.
Yeah.
Yep. So on the medical side, I work really hard, as do all daily money managers, to really identify what is that true cost, what is that bill, and then follow up with the insurance companies or Medicare if they're paying, and making sure those get paid. Tax-wise, just on the medical side, for a lot of families, we keep track of those numbers. Oftentimes, medical expenses can become a deductible item. And in the past, it never entered their mind. So keeping track of that medical information, out-of-pocket costs on an annual basis is really important. The other piece is, in our working careers, we typically got a W-2 in the mail at the end of the year. We move into retirement for an older adult, and even a lot of active families, there can be W-2s coming from multiple places. We have Social Security 1099s, we have distributions from our IRAs or from other retirement plans. So gathering all of the information, what most of us do is kind of work off the 1040. I don't prepare taxes, but I prepare it in an order that goes right to the CPA to basically become data entry. So it's looking at all of the income items, all of the expense items, medical expenses, anything that we've incurred during the year. Oftentimes by putting together a system throughout the year, that preparation is minimal because we've gathered it as we've gone.
And so you're not a CPA, you're not an attorney. You previously were a financial planner. Now you just help with the consulting piece of it.
Correct.
But you refer to people that can help with those
Can help
other
with all
services.
those other pieces. It's truly, it takes a village. It truly
Yeah.
takes a village. I think for so many of us during our lifetime, perhaps we started working with an accountant. And if we had families or had legal issues come up, we started working with an attorney. And for a lot of people, through the accumulation phase of their life, we're working with an investment advisor. I think the most important thing when there's illness, when there's a death in the family, when there's stress around finances, is to bring those professionals together. So the attorney needs to know the accountant, and the accountant needs to know the financial advisor, and making sure those legal documents are in place and active and accessible for anyone that needs them, but also that the coordination of information is being passed.
Do you have, because I've worked with a lot of financial planners, and they're all, especially when it comes to dementia, real apprehensive of sometimes working with somebody with dementia, and are they competent or aren't they, and how is that done? But one of the things they've been talking about more and more is having permission to contact, to reach out to somebody if a certain point is hit, giving you permission. Do you have something like that? So maybe right now they don't want the kids to know, or they don't even want their spouse to know, because they've always done the finances, and she just can't get it. I hear that all the time from people, and she really doesn't want to get it either.
Good point.
A lot of
Good
times.
point.
And so, when is it okay for to reach out and disclose, to keep the ball moving and keep their assets and bills covered?
So what I typically do, and again, I think across the board for daily money managers, we do an agreement right from the very beginning that basically lays that out and says identifying who is the power of attorney. And as we know, that person can act just as you would. Now, that doesn't mean the power of attorney has to be actively involved in daily decisions when they have capacity to do that. So oftentimes what I'll do is a monthly or a quarterly report that gets sent on. That's not sharing the information we talked about when we were sitting at the table opening mail, or the things that we've discussed, but kind of the nuts and bolts, if you will, the profit and loss or the income statement to really be able to share that information. When I see that, and again, I think I'm blessed because I get to know my clients because I meet in their home. So when I start seeing those kind of warning signs, if you will, then absolutely we're contacting the power of attorney or whatever family member is in place. And sometimes it's difficult. A lot of times the adult children may contact me and want me to get in there and start working. And when I say, you know, mom or dad's the client, that can be difficult sometimes. But I think it's respecting the privacy of that individual as long as they can manage.
We talked a little bit about who utilizes the Daily Money Manager, but talk about who actually benefits. And we did talk about the child from some way and having that relationship, but expand on that. Who?
Well, I think the client themselves. I named my company Financial Wellness because I truly believe our financial health is as important as our physical and our mental. So being able to have the family be the family, without that, I think it's the client that feels in control once again when maybe other aspects of their life are out of control. I think working with an executor, an administrator with an estate issue, having those documents put together, knowing what you have, what it means, and how it's going to be dispersed is peace of mind for everyone involved.
And when people are meeting with an attorney, they ask for, here's a list of everything I need you to bring in so that they're looking, so the Daily Money Manager
can help with that. I think a lot of families, and I've met with them and talked to their attorneys, when they get that inventory, so often that process, they've started kind of the ball rolling, I'm going to do my estate planning. And all of a sudden they find out, oh my word, I could never put all these pieces together, and therefore that process stops. So absolutely, the Daily Money Manager can come in and do an inventory of assets. We keep track of title, we keep track of beneficiary, again, kind of that overall financial life that you've led.
Do you do like a search? Because I know sometimes people forget about bank accounts, or maybe they've moved and they've lost track. I mean, you hear those stories. Is that something that you can kind of search out just to make sure you've got all the pieces? You know?
In Minnesota, we can go to unclaimed property and enter that, and I'm amazed every time what I find on there.
I found some money was owed to me, so yeah. So
yeah, that's usually the starting point. Oftentimes, especially, and I'll say specifically in an older adult situation, we hang on to papers. So typically, if I start with a new family, and regardless of what's going on, I go back probably, sometimes I've seen tax returns from 1970, still in files in an office. So I start with the tax return. And looking, and when you get to the Schedule D as part of your return, any kind of capital gains or dividends, any interest statements, and we kind of start the search from there. Okay. But that's so common. Again, I think there's so many reasons why we have separate accounts that we forget while they're there.
Yep.
So you can come in and take some stress off of the person, but also stress off of family members who are maybe out of town even, or even if they are local, they're dealing with their own life. Other circumstances, though, you know, medical paperwork is horrendous to try and sort through. So that, but if somebody needs help with like medical because of an incident, but maybe they were okay doing their bills before, or now they have a medical situation, but then they go on. Do you do kind of short term like that?
Absolutely. Agreements are typically the length that the person wants. A lot of my work happens on a project, I call it a project basis. There's a crisis or some things happened and things are out of order. So always up to the client. It can be a long-term relationship. I work with families on a monthly, even bi-weekly at sometimes. A lot of tax preparation, gathering of those documents.
Do you do like medical assistance applications? Because those are like deadly. I mean, I remember going in with like 3 or 4 big 3-ring binders of documentation for my folks. I mean, it took me 2 weeks
Yeah.
to pull everything.
Those are really the 1040, our tax return, and the medical assistance apps are really my basis for gathering.
Yep.
Because I don't know if you'll ever need medical assistance or not, but I know that you're going to need 3-ring binders of information when you apply for that.
Yep.
I know that even if you aren't required, this year to file your taxes, you might be next year. So using those 2 documents and the information required is really kind of my base to go from.
Okay. And you work with estate planners?
Estate planning attorneys, elder care planning attorneys, financial representatives. I don't sell any product, so it's just the service of gathering that information and helping create those planning tools, if you will. I like to do a lot of focus on the cash flow planning to be able to look out and say, if this continues, how long are our assets going to last? When is that medical assistance application going to come into the picture, if at all?
Or a reverse mortgage. We've talked about that with some clients.
It makes sense for a reverse mortgage. It's a wonderful, and we've talked about this, a wonderful funding vehicle. It has to be the right fit for the family. And I think you guys, you do such great work on really identifying, is there a need and what do the next few years look like? Is this the tool? So really we're kind of looking in our tool chest and saying what's right for you and your unique situation.
Yeah, it needs to be for the individual situation and that. And then, of course, the life settlement from sponsors, GWG Life, is using that as a tool a way of, you've got a life insurance policy that you can't afford anymore, you don't need anymore, but you need cash, so it can be
wonderful. And again, I think that's a great point. So often I'll run into people and say, well, I have this product, or whether it's life insurance, an annuity, an IRA, and here's what I have it for. And I use the example, I say, it is the raining day. It's pouring around you, and I know that this is what you designated this asset for, but we really need to use that asset in a different way.
So having that conversation can come into play and benefit them, and how to take care of what their needs are. And sometimes I find in the discussion on reverse mortgages too, I wanted to leave my house to my children. Well, what happens if you need money and your kids don't have the money to help, or if they do, one child may be able to and the other doesn't, and the conflict that can come into play.
Every family has dynamics, we all know that.
Yeah.
When we throw money in, it gets difficult.
Yeah, and we have just a couple minutes left, so let's talk about getting a power of attorney. Do daily money managers obtain a power of attorney?
Some may, if that's a trusted, again, and maybe back up even a little bit further, the daily money manager is really somebody that's good. I always say, I'm going to be your best friend.
Yeah.
So we have to like each other. It has to be a good, strong working relationship. There are daily money managers that will act as that fiduciary and take the power of attorney. They don't need to. If we're working with somebody with capacity, it could be as easy as sliding beside and saying, you've always written the checks, I'm going to write them for you, but you're still going to sign.
Okay.
Yes, so it's not required.
And what about the fees? It's an hourly fee?
Typically what we'll see is hourly fees. Those will range. I think in the Twin Cities the average is anywhere between $75 and $100 an hour. That really depends on the situation and the complexity of the situation. Most, if not all, daily money managers will sit down with a family at no cost. Again, it's an intimate relationship. So it needs to be good not only for the family, but also for the daily money manager.
And so the initial is?
The initial,
I
I offer at no cost.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty average.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty average. Again, it's one of those. You want to know and trust that individual. Ask them for references. Talk to families that they've worked with.
Okay. Thank you for being here and sharing what I think is kind of a secret of an option that's available for people. Your contact information is on the bottom of the screen. Maura Albrecht, Financial Wellness for You. Thank you, Lori LeBay, again from Alzheimer's Speaks for being with us and co-hosting.
Oh, thank you.
And thank you to our sponsors, GWG Life and Reverse Mortgages SIDAC. And don't forget to visit SavvySeniorSources.com to get information on resources and the resource guide. Thanks for joining us.
What is the secondary market for life insurance? The secondary market for life insurance is an emerging financial market that provides individuals options with their policies. These options allow policyholders to benefit from the value of their life insurance. Policies are sometimes a financial burden, especially for seniors, as premiums often increase over time. The secondary market offers financial alternatives that can help policyholders benefit from their life insurance now.
Hi, I'm Beth Paterson, a certified reverse mortgage professional with Reverse Mortgages SIDAC. Bob's wife passed away, meaning his Social Security income was cut in half. His financial advisor suggested he look into a reverse mortgage. With the reverse mortgage, he was able to take a dream vacation with his nephew, and oh, the stories that they can share. After Bob passed away, his niece shared the difference that it made to the whole family. Dorothy did the reverse mortgage in order to protect her other retirement funds. With her line of credit, she was able to travel, buy a new car, and do home repairs. Years later, she's still benefiting from the reverse mortgage line of credit and not having to rely on her children. For more information on how you too can have security, independence, dignity, and control, contact us.